Hey everybody, how's it going? How are you? Oops, I forgot to get this thing. Hey! So I can bring you all up. That's important because we're here with Dr. Nadia Azar to talk about drumming injury prevention, how to correct some different things, this, that, the other thing, some of this, some of that. And this way I could bring you up on my monitor so I can relay questions and comments to Dr. Nadia Azar, who's a professor of kinesiology at the University of Windsor in Canada. I know, fake university, fake country, but she is really a professor of kinesiology. Nadia, hi!
Hey Dan, how's it going?
Going great. So fun and exciting to be back and doing this show with you that we did.
Yeah.
I think we did it for over 2 years until stuff just kind of caved in, right?
Yeah. No, it's been a really long time. I think it's been like 6 months since I think the last time we had to record it so that you could just put it later. And even that was a good 6 months ago. So it's nice to be back.
Exactly. And that cave in was not because of any sort of pandemic or anything. Folks, where I live, the internet totally took a tank and something broke in our system. It took our cable company 9 months to figure out that this little teeny tiny part got burnt in our radio dish thing. Unbelievably ridiculous. But now it works and we are here and we're going to talk about what is a drumming injury. I think the only thing we're not counting, well, a couple things. We're not counting lugging your stuff and pulling a muscle. That's not exactly a drumming injury. We're not talking about banging your knuckles on a rim. However, if that happens over and over, you might want to think about changing your setup, and that is relevant to what we're talking about. So Nadia, why don't you run down the list of different afflictions that us drummers sometimes acquire, short-term, long-term, and then we'll open it up for discussion. Folks, if you have questions, if you have a story to share, how you've corrected something or maybe avoided them completely. I don't know if anyone has. But yeah, what are we talking about here, Nadia?
Okay, so the kinds of injuries that we're talking about are similar to work-related, like repetitive strain injuries. So you're right, we're not talking about bashing your knuckles on the snare or accidentally punching yourself somewhere unmentionable.
I do that not even drumming somehow.
Yeah. So we're talking about the kind of stuff that happens from doing the same thing over and over again. And actually, I will say lugging gear could actually lead to, I do actually count that in playing related injuries only because a lot of drummers report that as an issue, that they find a big part of the strain is when they're moving their stuff.
Yeah, and certainly you can get injured doing that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I
But
didn't
it's
mean
not
to imply that
strictly
you could.
playing.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
no, you're right about that. It's not strictly playing related. So, these kinds of injuries are the sort of thing that happen over time, directly through your playing that affect your ability to play the drums to the intensity or the skill level that you're used to. So some examples are things like tendinitis, carpal tunnel syndrome, bursitis, back pain. Those are kind of the
arthritis as well. Aggravating arthritis.
aggravating it, yes. And I suppose it could, over years and years, the wear and tear could, like arthritis could be caused by drumming, by the wear and tear, similarly to how people who are very athletic in their youth and play sports at a high level for a long time are more likely to have arthritis down the road. So same kind of idea. So the two most common drumming injuries that I've heard about that was reported in my big survey study that you helped us out with. The two main ones were tendinitis and carpal tunnel syndrome. So those are the two that we've kind of focused our efforts on.
Great, thanks. Yeah, and folks, tell us where you're watching from and tell us if you have an injury that's from, basically, it's like a repetitive motion industry, like Nadia said. And if you have questions for Nadia, if you have something to share, I'm going to read a couple comments that we have already. Oh, wow. Samuel Stevenson is watching from Mumbai, India. Nice. Thank you.
Awesome.
Beautiful part of the world with beautiful music, absolutely, especially when we talk about the percussion instruments there. Awesome. David John says, I'm retired and 63. Is it too late to learn to play? No, it's never too late. And that's a great topic. In fact, if you join me on Saturday at there we go, at 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern U.S. times. I'm going to be doing Dan's almost daily vlog. It's weird that I speak for a living. You'd never know, right? I will address that. That's a great topic. It is never too late. Great question. Then we got. Let me slide my slider up. Rich Christensen, thanks for joining us. He says right hand thumb used to go numb after a while. I repositioned my ride cymbal and boom, problem solved. Great.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I'm curious, what grip do you use? If you're right-handed and it's your right hand, I know traditional grip won't affect that, but do you play, oh, my drumsticks are way over there. Do you play French grip or a more German grip? Because sometimes, Nadia, that could have an effect on it, compounded with how you hit and how your setup is, right?
Yeah, absolutely, because they use two different motions. So the French grip, you're getting more of like the waving high, like side to side motion.
Right.
Whereas with the matched grip, the German match, you're more up and down flexion extension.
Right.
So that puts stress on your wrist and your thumb in different ways. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for that note. What a great piece of advice. Sometimes you just got to move stuff around. Chris Beals says, I might have missed the first part of your comment. Let me see. He says he's used a cushion for the ankle, protects ankles and bones and feet. He says used it for 6 years. It really works. Watching from Nashville. Cool, thanks. I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to. Interesting. But if it works, if it's helping, that's great. And Rich Christensen watching from Wisconsin. Go back. Nice. And Rose Kerr. Hi, Rose. Ooh, she's your neighbor almost. Well, by a few hundred miles or so. Yeah, she's in Tirana, right?
Yeah.
Canada. Tendinitis in my elbow is my issue. I do exercises and they help. Whoops, it moved. Sorry, where did it go? It help, but it always comes back. Do you have advice or questions for her on that to help kind of zero in on what it could be?
Yeah. So if she's seeing a medical professional and the exercise kind of help, but then it comes back, there's a couple things. One, that tells me that there's something that needs to change with the way your drum set is set up, potentially, because all the rehab in the world isn't going to do anything if nothing changes, like if the cause of the problem doesn't change. So I would say look into having someone watch you play and maybe see if they can't, even the physiotherapist, if they can watch you play and see if they can't figure out like, oh, it's because of, this particular motion that's causing that problem. That you might then be able to move different elements around or move things in closer to avoid that motion to stop aggravating the issue. That would be my biggest advice for that.
Yeah, otherwise
That something still needs to change.
Yeah, otherwise it's just like stepping on a nail over and over. You can get the Band-Aid and the antiseptic, but if you keep stepping on the nail, you're going to keep getting a hole in your foot. Same thing.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah. And that's the hard part. Like it's easy to know like, okay, I got to go and see someone about this. The hard part is knowing what to do to stop it from coming back.
Right.
So a physiotherapist might be able to help with that because they're trained to analyze motion. And so they should, if you show them a video of yourself playing and make sure your full arm is visible in it, they should be able to like detect or get some idea of what you might need to change to help stop aggravating that tendon.
Cool. And what Chris Beals was referring to is the Renzi. I know what that is. The Renzi is like a lift device on the heel of a bass drum pedal. And then we have. Let me go through these. It's weird that these are coming in out of order. I know that because when it's a person comments again, it's like out of order. It's weird.
And it jumps around, so it's hard to track.
Yeah, bear with me, folks. Larry Pace says rotator cuff, left shoulder, slight pain. Larry Pace, how long has that been? And does it only hurt when you drum, or are you pretty sure it's from drumming? I'm curious. Let us know. I'm going to see what else is here. Samuel, it's kind of off topic. We're talking about drumming injuries today, but I'll tell you this: the only sticks I've ever seen that don't break are not made out of wood, and I play with them. They're made by a company called Ahead. Look up Ahead drumsticks and accessories. Other than that, all wood sticks can break.
Do you play? So Ahead has those vibration mitigation drumsticks. Are those the ones you use?
I think that they're the same sticks. Yeah. Do I have a pair up here? I think I have a
They've got.
pair.
I can't remember if they're totally made from a composite like
Yeah,
fiber type thing, or if they have a
they are.
like poly whatever core to them. I can't remember now.
I
I've
think,
seen a
let me see
couple.
something here. I have a pair from Lux Drummerette, awesome metal drummer. So they're made of the shaft opens and comes apart. So you could change this whole top part. I've had 7 pair in 11 years. Do the math, folks. I've had 7 pairs in 11 years, and 2 of those I still have that I'm using, and they're not broken. So these are amazing. They take some getting used to because for me they were slippery. I don't get sweaty hands, but they are 100% like a composite. I don't know because of my arthritis. I can't open it right now. I just can't twist hard enough. But I can play really well. Well, I can play. I don't remember what the core is, but I know it's a composite. I know that there's no wood or anything, and these things last, and they're quite light. That took some getting used to as well. But I personally, I love them.
That's it.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see those. I have been meaning to order a pair to check out because we just wrapped up, or actually we're still in the process, but we've wrapped up the first phase of a study of vibration in drummers. So we
Oh,
put a device on drummers' hands that measures vibration the
oh
same way you
wow.
would measure it on a tool in industry.
Yeah.
And we had them play and then we recorded the vibrations.
Oh wow.
And yeah, so, and I mean, spoiler alert, they're high. So, I get
Wait,
questions
the
about like,
drummers or the vibrations? Or the people testing them?
not the, not
All
in
the
my lab,
above.
unless,
Let's check off.
we didn't ask that as part of our screening. I don't know.
That's
Um,
funny. Okay, pee in a cup. Now we're going to hook this thing up to your wrist. But wait, I have a question about the test, Nadia.
okay.
Wouldn't an immense, maybe I'm wrong, but wouldn't an immense variable be not just how they play, like your other tests, but what they're playing? Like if
Yeah.
someone's playing just kind of some light jazz and I'm playing like a real heavy song, wouldn't that vary, even with the same person getting different vibrational readings, right?
Absolutely, it would. Yeah,
So what is sort
definitely.
of the baseline, or is there a baseline that you're using for that, or just kind of seeing what happens when people play and how that arcs?
Basically, we just wanted to see what happens when people play because actually, one other group out of I can't remember where in South America right now, if it was Brazil or Argentina, but they did something similar.
Okay.
But they also only had, we have had 6 drummers come through this study so far. They also only had 6, so we're trying to get more.
Okay.
But we wanted the drummers to play songs that represent their own playing style and things they're familiar with.
Oh, nice.
Because if you're not familiar, like if we said we want you to play this, this, and this and prepare for it. If you're not comfortable, you might be tense and
Yeah.
that increases transmission. So we didn't want that. So yeah, that is a bit of an issue because we had one drummer who played like loud metal, hard hit it, that kind of stuff. And his numbers were wild. And then we had other drummers that played more like Nate Smith and, some lighter, like great stuff, technical stuff, but not like, metal kind of
Bombastic.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And their values were lower. But what was interesting is that everyone still exceeded the thresholds that like if those numbers had been recorded in say an assembly plant, the company would have had to pull the tool or redesign the job
Wow.
to drop it down because it was over the thresholds that the governing bodies have set for maximum
How
exposure to a worker.
how does it compare to simple like hammering a nail into a piece of wood or a wall to hang a picture? the
You know,
average drumming playing?
that I don't know.
Okay. I'd be
But
curious, like how what the context is to our vibrational reading when we play versus some sort of simple household things like that. You know?
yeah, I mean, so I was actually just reading this over because I'm the student who is running this study. Dylan is getting ready to finish up, and so I was just reading his draft today, and he did do some comparisons to other uh, tasks. So I'm actually just gonna I have it in front of me, so I'm gonna see if I can
Even
find
like to
it.
applauding, I'd be curious what the difference is.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be pretty easy to throw that on someone and find out, but
What a neat test. I love
I
that.
don't actually have it in front of me. So, okay, here it is. Let's see. Yeah, so for this one group looked at the values in mining operations through using tools like jackhammers and coal drills, and the values they got were quite a bit lower than what we got,
Oh,
like
interesting.
significantly lower.
Cool.
Uh, let's
While you look,
see.
I'm going to circle back to Rich Christensen's answer to my question regarding his
Okay.
rotator cuff. He said he had the right shoulder rebuilt 2 years ago. It was quite painful to play before surgery. Well, now it's like new. Wow. That's as big of a leap of improvement as you might want, I guess. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
what?
awesome.
I don't get this one. Okay. I've not figured out how to grow hair back. I used to have amazing hair. I get married, have a bunch of kids, and that goes away. Okay, uh, Chris Beals on the Renzi says replaces, yeah, the heel plate with cushion, so for more stomping on the cheese grater metal. See, that wouldn't work for me because that part of my foot has never touched the pedal. I don't even understand the concept of playing heel down. I know that I'm not
Mm.
saying don't do it or that it's wrong, but I've never been able to play heel down. My foot just won't work. I can't go brah with one foot with my heel down, so I don't get that. But hey,
Mm.
whatever works for however we play to make us play, right? Rose Kerr, you're welcome. Thank you so much. Brian Cooper, hey Brian. Brian says, greetings from Mount Laurel, New Jersey, where NFL films used to be based. How did I know that? I used to record there actually. This was back in 84, 85 through like 88 or something like that. I probably have the math wrong on that. But yeah, right around there. Mount Laurel, beautiful area. And says, I lost my place. There it is. Oh, I have CMC joint arthritis in my left thumb, and he's right handed, so that's his snare hand. I play both traditional and match, fluctuate between French and German. Any thoughts?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a tough one because I would have said fluctuate between grips to kind
Yeah.
of change up the strain
Do you play hard?
on
I'm
the
curious if he
thumb.
plays hard.
Yeah, there's that. There's so that's one thing to look for. So I lost my train of thought there. Playing both traditional and match, fluctuate between that.
Because like Todd Zuckerman is and Dean Castronovo, Steve Smith, they play uh, traditional grip insanely hard. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
the stick would fly out of my hand if I tried to do what they do. You know, so that's
Mm-hmm.
why I'm wondering if the velocity, is a factor there.
Yeah, it could be that. It could be the how much tension you're holding using to hold the sticks. If your grip is pretty tight, you could try working on relaxing that because that could be aggravating it as well. Um, I wonder if there's like fluctuation is normally good because you're putting demands in different ways and kind of sharing, spreading the load.
Shifting,
But I'm
yeah.
yeah, but I wonder if there's one or the other. Like, does it feel better when you play traditional versus the matched, or is it
Yeah,
worse? That maybe maybe not using that technique if you don't have to. I know some genres and styles call for it, but
right.
as much as possible, not using it. I don't know. Yeah.
Interesting. Cool. And Samuel Stevenson also asks, how can he play drums without getting his palm swollen up with a lump. Any idea what could be causing that?
Swell it up with a lump in your palm. I mean, it's hard to, that's fairly vague because I don't know
Yeah.
exactly where that lump is.
Yeah, and I'm curious if he
But
also plays really hard, maybe, or something.
yeah, that, or again, I would say look at the grip and how hard you're gripping, how hard you're holding the sticks. If you find that you are, and maybe it's because of things like sweaty hands or that sort of thing, then look at maybe using either those sticks that I think ProMark makes those ones with that like that stuff on it that gets tacky as
Yeah.
you use it, or grip tape or things like that to maybe help you not have to hold on so hard.
Right. Could be a strain sort of related issue.
Yeah, although the lump is interesting. That I don't know, unless it's just swelling of a particular area. But yeah, that
Okay.
again, without actually seeing it or knowing more about it, I'm not sure. But those are a
Okay.
couple things to try anyway.
Cool. And Brian Cooper says that he's not known as a heavy-handed drummer. Okay, cool.
Okay.
And hey, Mark Ali just joined us. Hey, how are you, Mark? And Mark Doran, how are you? He says, hi, Dr. Nadia and Dan. Brilliant stream and so interesting. I have my snare drum quite high and flat. I'll occasionally catch the harmonic from the rim and receive a shock slash buzz in my right through my wrist. I found raising my stool eliminates this with raised posture. Might that be a thing or just coincidence? Cheers, guys. Mark in Liverpool, England. Thanks, Mark. Hope your mom's doing well too. And I want to comment on that first, if I may. I asked Todd in an interview, one of his interviews we did last year, because Todd's snare is really high compared to how he sits. It's almost like at his navel. It pretty much is. And I said, how do you it looks so uncomfortable to me. And he says, well, if you bring your hand down for karate chop right there when it's parallel with the floor, that's where I want to strike the drum. So I raise my drum so it's there. Now, maybe for Todd's physiology, he's kind of short like I am, and maybe that works for him. But for I'm sorry, I forgot who it was. I'm sorry. Let me
It's
back up.
Mark.
For Mark, it was so long ago. Maybe for Mark, that his physiology is different, and that just angle doesn't work as well. So by
Yeah.
doing the opposite, it works better.
Yeah, and that's what it sounds like. I mean, I'm not sure what that means by catch the harmonic from the rim. I'm guessing that means he hits the rim
Yeah, it sounds
not on
like,
purpose, like unwanted.
or it could be
Um,
from a rim shot, maybe. Let us know,
yeah.
Mark. I have a feeling
Um,
it's that kind of thing because sometimes when you do a rim shot, it could be like you feel a whole different vibration. At least I do.
Yeah. So yeah, and it could be, especially if you're not trying to do a rim shot, if you hit it accidentally, you maybe hit it harder than you were intending to, which might account for that buzz.
Right.
Although now I'm wondering if Mark, when you say shock slash buzz, do you mean like the vibration like traveling up your arm, or do you mean like a nerve thing, I'm wondering if that's like a neural response, or if you're talking about the buzz of like you hit something and like your arm vibrates and you feel that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, because that's two totally different things.
Right. And here's something interesting to me. Chris Beals also says rock and sock thrown with a back has been a must-have, and must-have is in all caps. Since the 90s, posture is better and energy stays way up. The reason I say that's interesting to me, and everybody, please understand, everything's different for everybody. That's what's different about the drums. You pick up a guitar, the strings are in the same place. The 8 guitars, the strings are going to be in the same place. The action might be different, but there's only so much of a difference there. Drumming is so different that there's not one thing that works the same way for everybody. But his comment regarding a backrest is intriguing to me because I can't imagine, for me, the need for a backrest. I can't imagine having to lean back against something or having something push me forward or anything. So I find it really neat that he found that as a solution to help his posture and keep his energy up. But again, we're all different. And I said that 25 years ago when I saw my friend who I met 25, 30 years ago, who I met, 30 years ago, a drummer, Keith Capsuto, in the Channel Islands area of Oxnard. First time I saw someone play with a backrest, I said, why don't you get a drum throne? What's with the office chair? He said, this is a drum throne. It just has a backrest. But he was also a much bigger guy than me. And I don't know if that had something to do with it. But I find it, and Mark Ali says, I don't like backrests. So it's really interesting how different strokes do indeed work for different folks. I want to get to another string of comments I see here from Don Riley. Hi, Don. Julian, I hope I'm reading this correct. Julian Assange faces extradition to the U.S. to 7,500 since truth document. Okay. Thanks for joining us, but no thanks. There we go. Okay.
Beyond the scope of our
that's
our discussion.
Yeah, Steve, go ahead and you know what to do with those. Okay. Moving on. So Chris explains what the backrest does is remind me I'm not sitting up straight. Cool. If I'm leaning forward and losing some energy, I lean back to sit up straight. Again, laugh out loud. That makes perfect sense. I get that. And Stephen Clark. Hey, Stephen, he says, I got golfer's elbow after joining... I got golfer's elbow after joining a Green Day tribute band. Is that like Green Day as in green on the golf course, the green, when you're up close to the hole from putting? Well, that's interesting. I wonder what the deal is. Did you start playing harder or set up differently than you were?
Or playing differently.
Yeah. And while we wait for that reply, Mark says, it's like a rim shot. The hoop in the head for kind of overtone, trying to make my snare sound like a Letty super sensitive. It's like an electric shock feeling, and my grip wavers. It sounds almost like what happens when you hit your funny bone.
Yeah. And that's interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah.
So if changing your posture changes that, then I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's helping. But that definitely, the electric shock feeling and affecting your grip, that's definitely a nerve. Something is happening with you're either pinching something or hitting something, or like Dan said, like you're hitting your funny bone kind of thing. That's the same response. If adjusting your snare, throne, height, setup kind of helps you avoid that, and you can do those rim shots without that sensation, then that's a good thing. Just make sure you're not adjusting it so much that you're now creating an issue,
another injury
in a different way. With your wrist posture in other ways.
Yeah, cool. Nadia, in your work and in your studies, what is the most common injury you've come across aside from lugging and lifting heavy gear from playing? What's the most common injury, and what's the most related or unrelated to that? What's the most easiest way to correct most injuries, if there is one common way to correct most in the way someone plays or their setup or whatever?
Yeah. Okay. So the most common that I've come across have been the tendinitis and carpal tunnel syndrome.
Okay.
And tendinitis, not necessarily just in the wrist. A lot of people here are talking about epicondylitis, which is like elbow tendinitis. I've heard from other drummers about shoulder issues as well. So we're talking about the entire upper arm, or the entire arm basically, for tendinitis. So in terms of like, there's no, like you said, there's no one size fits all. There's no magic bullet for preventing these types of injuries. And it's still not a magic bullet, but if you haven't had these injuries, that's good. But it doesn't necessarily mean you don't have something brewing. Sometimes these injuries, especially in younger drummers, these things can take time to show up. So, what worked when you were 20, 25 may not work for you anymore when you're 30, 35, 40 and beyond. So having someone assess your posture and your movements while you're playing and being able to kind of, look for things like, extreme postures or inefficiencies or things like that, can be helpful in prolonging. I'm not going to say the inevitable because it's not inevitable. It's hard to predict exactly there are so many risk factors that go into determining at how at risk someone is of an injury that it's impossible to predict who's going to get one and who's not. But some things are more likely to lead to it, and extreme postures, reaching farther than you have to, hitting harder than you need to. Right. Muscle tension is another one, and muscle tension can lead to tendonitis because your tendons are what connect your muscles to your bones. So if you are gripping really hard all the time and you're putting a lot of force in, that is putting a lot of force through your tendons, and that can irritate them and cause them to flare up. So it's worth looking at all of those things to either make sure you're still doing, continuing on the right path, or can make changes to habits before they become a problem.
Right. Cool. And that's one of the things about drummers who perform, and depending on the kind of music they play, they may set up a lot for show. And that means things that are really high that they have to reach for. And if you're playing a fast song that you have to go all the way from hi-hat to bang, that can be a big factor. I set up completely differently than I did 30, 40 years ago. Completely differently. Everything, even my toms up off the bass drum were much higher. I'm sitting lower. And all my stuff is lower. I still have a couple things that are up here. I've got this one small china that's high. Other than that, everything's really easy to get to. I economize my motion, which reduces risk, of course. This is all on my big kit, folks. If you haven't seen Dan's Almost Daily Vlog, check it out Saturday, or look in our, video archives on the Facebook page or on YouTube if you're watching this there, Instagram, whatever. But it's a really big drum set. And so there's stuff, it's easy for me to pull a muscle in my sides, twisting to get over to these two tympanies, go all the way over here to my last drum, there's that as well. My other kit it's a no-brainer. It's a 4-piece kit and everything's as easy as it could possibly be to get to. So that absolutely, can have so much, if not everything, to do with it. Ingo Marte is saying hello. Ingo Marte, I'm surprised that he's chiming in on such a public platform, being that he's been on the lam for about 5 years, running from, no, I'm kidding. Ingo Marte is one of the nicest guys you can meet. And he's an awesome professional drum tech. Ingo, we have to do a show on drum teching and moving and taking care of gear and stuff like that. Been saying that for Drum Talk TV is 9 years and 2 weeks old now, and I've been saying it the whole time. Ingo, we're going to do that. I'll reach out to you. And Mark Ali also says radial ulna fixation and pinched nerves have been my things, as well as tendonitis. Do you know why, Mark? I'm curious if you know why. I'm just looking through comments real quick. Oh, that's interesting. Everything's moving again. Where'd it go? Chris Beals talking about, I'd like to talk to, and it's GAIAM, I think, GAIAM, exercise ball manufacturer, about creating a musician's seat that has the ball top. That bounce here in my video music editing office makes me feel great and bouncy. That sounds fun, actually. And that's why I like having a hydraulic bottom, a hydraulic throne, because I do like a bit of that movement. If I do have to reach and I come slightly off my seat, it's less of a harder jolt coming back. Or if you stand up, or you want to stand up, take a bow, catch that lingerie being thrown at you, whatever it is. A water balloon raw egg, tomato. When you sit back down real quickly, there's a bit of forgiveness
A bit
there.
of give to it, yeah.
Yeah, so I get that bouncy ball thing. What a neat idea. And Steven says regarding the the golfer's elbow, he says change the setup and I felt I was playing harder. I've calmed down now and the playing more relaxed, so my arm has improved massively. That's good to hear, and you also bring up a good point because um, we don't have to play tense to play loud. We don't have to play tense even to play hard. You can still be relaxed. I mean, a good whipping motion can smack something just as hard as being as rigid and forceful as possible. It's really all in motion and movement. Freddie Gruber described it best, where it's kind of like ballet. It's constant motion, and that has a lot to do with it. And usually, when drummers are playing rigidly, you can absolutely hear it in their music. And when drummers are relaxed, there's so much more groove to it. And often the timing is better as well because they're not as, so you got to learn to play relaxed. And I have two students. I teach one of them, your stick is an extension of your fingers, which is an extension of your hand, which is an extension of your wrist. They're all hinges. And when we do this, you're really hurting yourself, not just physically, but just musically, and cheating yourself out a lot of enjoyment out of the playing, because it's so much easier to play when you can have like that kind of motion. And even just the micro motions. Where'd that stick go? Even like on the bell, ting, 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 it's a, but when you can do this motion, it makes such a difference. Physiologically, that makes sense, right, Nadia, from a scientific point of view?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Tense muscles transmit vibration more easily than loose ones do
Right.
because they're stiffer and stiff objects transmit.
Right. Think
So,
about sound abatement in a studio, folks. If you have hard walls, the sound is going to bounce around more, and the sound's going to go through those walls because they're acting as an amplifier to transfer those vibrations. You throw a bunch of foam and stuff on the walls, and it's doing exactly what we're talking about. It's absorbing that.
yep.
Cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, playing relaxed is definitely an important thing, not just for sound, but also for your body, for a few
Cool.
different reasons.
Thanks, Louis. Santiago or Jago, I'm not sure. Sorry, in Belgium. Thank you. Mark Ali also mentions regarding thrones that the Motion Pro was designed by a chiropractor, made the most sense, and the Motion Pro is what helped him the most. Motion throw prones have been the solution. My pelvis shift in the seat is a must with the springs. Cool. I've never heard of that. I'll take a look
Yeah,
at
I never
that.
heard of that one either.
Yeah, the Motion Pro was designed by a chiropractor, made the most sense. Cool. And then he says, I did a video interviewing the creator on Motion Pro. The moving of the pelvis and the mobility made a huge difference. My personal favorite throne is by a head, and it's called hopefully Bob's not watching this, he'll kill me. It's called the Spinal Glide. There you go, Bob. Bob Kasha of a head. The Spinal Glide has been my solution. It's very comfortable. I used to never, one of these things I had never tried, like a little kid. I hate broccoli. Have you ever tried it? No, but I hate it. I didn't like the seats that were the shovel. Nadia has kids. She gets that.
Yeah.
It was the tractor shovel shape. I think that's what it's called. And having that thing in the front just for a guy looked uncomfortable. And I told Bob I wanted to try one of the seats. He sent me one, and I love it. It's perfect. I admit, I had to get used to it not being round because it does matter where you sit. Other than that, it's been very comfortable. I have zero lower back problems. I went through 10 years of suffering from a really bad case of sciatica combined with bulging two discs in my back, all from a sneeze, believe it or not. Couldn't walk for a month, walked with a cane on and off for 5 months. And for 10 years, this bothered me. It finally went away. But this is one of those things that makes sure it never comes back. I never, ever, at 59 coming up really soon, have zero back problems. And I'm proud of that because I suffered for a very long time. Very, very long time.
Yeah, the
Mark's,
thrones that I'm curious about, and this maybe everybody doesn't use these, but they're the thumper thrones, like the ones that you use on stage that have the vibration going through so that you can, because you can't hear the bass drum, but that way you can feel it.
right.
And I've never tried one. I've never measured anything. I don't know anything about them, so I'm not hating on them. But I do wonder about that. And like you're putting vibration, you're applying it directly to the tailbone, right to the spine. I do wonder about that.
But could it
that's
work as
potentially
a
a problem?
but could it work as a benefit, just like ultrasonic muscle therapy? You know, like when you go, have you ever been a chiropractor and they do the thing where it stimulates the muscles?
Yeah, but I mean, that much of it, like if you think if someone's playing, for an hour
Yeah,
and getting that,
that's true.
The chiropractors use that thumper thing for, 30 seconds
Yeah.
or so.
Yeah, that's true.
So I do wonder about that. I
That's
haven't had a chance
interesting.
to study that yet, but that's definitely on my radar.
Interesting. I'd be curious to know about that. And Mark says, what do I think of the pelvis shifting? Well, for me, I have to be pretty limber for that because of the bigger setup, and I do shift my pelvis a lot. He says, sorry, not selling, just want to know about the concept for Nadia. No problem on that. Don't mind you mentioning that at all. The concept of motion from the seat playing a factor, and does that make sense here regarding, pelvis motion? Have you had, and related to that, Nadia, have you had people in your studies complaining about pelvis issues because of turning or the fact that their bass drum is set up? Like my set is set up offset, the big kit. My bass drum is set offset like this, the way my foot naturally lands if I sit in a chair. Whereas for 50 years, I played 50 years. Yeah, about 45 years. I played like most people where the bass drum's this way. So I'm actually sitting like this, but that's the front of the kit. And we tend to
Right.
twist when we play like that. When I stopped playing like that, it did help a bit of a hip issue I did have. My small force piece is set up more traditionally, and I don't have issues on that one because I don't move much. But what are your thoughts on the whole pelvis issue?
Yeah, I haven't actually had very much. I mean, certainly low back injuries came up
Okay.
as an issue, nowhere near to the magnitude of upper limb stuff, shoulder, elbow, wrist, hand. But so I haven't really dug in too much to that. So I don't have a whole lot. Sorry, Mark. I don't have much to say about the pelvis shifting. It's hard to comment because I need to see it. I don't know what that shifting looks like or feels like. So I can't comment on, whether that's a good thing or not. But again, like if it's working for you, then, and especially if you had an issue and this is helping, then that's great.
Yeah.
Again, like, the whole, I've said this before on here, I hate seeing stuff like, oh, it was ergonomically designed. It's like, well,
For
what does that
who?
even mean? For who? Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Even something
what's
like,
ergonomic for one person is not ergonomic
right. Even for
for someone
something
else.
this simple, because our hands are all different sizes and shaped differently,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So,
And Pontus Engborg. Pontus Engborg, that sounds like such a cool name. So he says, hey guys, just jumped in here. Hope you're all are well. Question, what's the most common injury to get behind the kit? Is it back, shoulders, tennis, golf, elbow? Great topic, all the best things. No, actually, the most common injury is listening to anything your lead singer has to say about music theory. Just kidding. Yeah, we covered that, and it's mainly upper body tendonitis and carpal tunnel, right?
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. The upper limb is the biggest. I mean, it makes sense, right?
Yeah,
The arms
absolutely.
would be affected the most, but yeah, carpal tunnel syndrome and tendonitis are the two most common.
And thanks for jumping in and checking this out. Be sure after we're done to go back and watch the whole thing. There's a lot of great information. Well, from Nadia, not from me. And then we've got a comment regarding the throne you were talking about, Nadia, is the Porter's and Davies throne.
Yeah, that's one of them. There are others too, but yes, they're one of them. And like I said, I'm not hating on it. I've never tried it,
Right.
but I do have questions. I'll say that. Not even concerns. I have questions about what that does.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
maybe one day, but I'm not saying don't use it. I know lots of people who do, so it is what it is. Again, it's got to be comfortable. And if it's working for you, I just wonder sometimes about the long-term exposure to that.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to remind everybody, if this is your first time seeing this show, thank you. If you saw it and wondered where it went, we're back. And drumming injury talk with Dr. Nadia, we're going to do once a month. So now that you've kind of had like a bit of a seed planted here with all this stuff, when you play, think about what's going on. Be aware of what's going on with your body, your limbs, all your extremities, everything. And when we do this next month, bring questions or observations even. And if you are experiencing something that you've learned from this talk on how to maybe correct it by changing something with your setup, your grip, your playing or whatever, and it does work, let us know. If it doesn't work, we don't want to hear from you. Just kidding. And we're going to probably be doing this the third Thursday of every month, I think.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. So our next one would be, that's the 17th of February, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. But it is a very important topic as well, because I think as musicians, we're probably the most susceptible to injury, whether you play hand percussion, whether you sit at a drum set, whether you play mallets. Mallets, I would think, are very susceptible because your mallets, especially not necessarily timpani drums, but xylophone, marimba, vibes, things like that, because you're hitting the hardest surface possible that a percussionist could hit. It's basically a block of wood or a slab of steel or something like that. Andrew Boussard says, thanks, Stephen. Andrew Boussard says, hello, I'm wondering if you have any experience with Kienbock's disease. I had this and had the 3 bones removed from my left wrist. I'm playing again, but it's a long road back and still bothers me from time to time. Any advice is greatly appreciated. I personally have never heard of it. Do you know what that is, Nadia?
I've never heard of that either. It's not something that's come up in my work, and I've actually never encountered that in other contexts either. So sorry, okay. Andrew, I don't have much to say about that.
Yeah, Andrew, what you could do is, if you don't mind, look it up and put a link as a reply to your own comment, and we'll both check that out later, and we'll address it on the next show. I'd be curious to know what that is. Interesting. And Boba, I don't know what BSR is, but thanks for watching. Cool. If there's no other questions, we're going to go. We want to keep it under an hour so we can make sure that we can put the archive of it on Instagram. And folks, if you're not aware, wherever you spend the most time online, we're probably there, unless it's on Tinder. But anyways, and we'll be there eventually. Just kidding. So we're here on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, and we're on Twitter, and we are incubating 2 TikTok channels right now. Hopefully we'll have 8 or 9 TikTok channels out this year, as well as 8 or 9 YouTube channels, believe it or not. But right now we have the Mothership YouTube channel, which is just like our Facebook page, where we have everything that we do there. What is that? We do interviews, we interview artists, we interview makers of gear. There's a few original series. Dan's Almost Daily Vlog, that's my nonsense, not very important but fun. This show with Dr. Nadia, very important and fun, no nonsense at all. And then my show I actually did yesterday, as we're recording, a tribute to the tributes. Yeah, that's true. Not the medical part though.
No.
And I do tribute to the tributes with Jason Gianni, where we point out great tribute bands and what the takeaways are of that. As a musician, we also do documentaries, we cover events when they're happening, and we curate content from our fans as well. So you can find all of that fun. Patrick Gauto, am I pronouncing that right? Thank you so much. There is Kienbock's disease, Nadia, right there. And Chris Beal says, love to chat with me live again. Visit me on Saturday. I'll be doing, this was my son Steve's idea, our associate producer. He mentioned something the other day about Pink Floyd, and Nick Mason's birthday is coming up as well next week, I think Wednesday. Wednesday or Thursday. So we'll do a tribute to Nick Mason this Saturday. That means I got to study a whole bunch of stuff, not just the obvious stuff. Very cool, very cool. Thanks, everybody, so much for joining us. I appreciate you following what we do here on Drum Talk TV. And if you're not familiar with all those other things I mentioned, go to the Facebook page, look at the videos album, go down the timeline. If you're watching this on YouTube, look through everything. There's so much fun stuff. We are the only media company in drumming that covers drumming and percussion from everywhere. Not just the big rock stars, not just the big pop stars, not just the big jazz stars, not just the big educators, not just the big brands. We do that, but we do everything else as well, whether it's Mirdi Dungam from India, whether it's the Gatham clay pot drum from the southern tip of India, whether it's tablas from India, hand drumming in Morocco, all over North Africa, West Africa, jazz in Korea. We did 2 taiko documentaries in Japan a couple of years ago. So much stuff to immerse yourself in and become basement people. Yeah, just take a giant bathtub's worth of Cheetos down there and you're set. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Nadia, thank you so much for taking time. I'm glad we're doing our show again, starting the new year off with some great information to help out the drumming community and our tribe here on Drum Talk TV.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be back. Thank you. And if you don't mind me doing a teeny little plug.
As big as you want.
My social media. Okay.
Yeah.
Just because I think there's some new names here that I don't recognize. And I do publish a lot of my research and other things on my socials too. They're all at Dr. Nadia Azar. So if you are on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, follow me there and you'll find some other stuff.
Yeah, and if you're seeing this on Facebook, her Facebook page is tagged in the description of this post as well. So you can click on that and just go right to her page.
That's
and
the easy one.
Yeah, cool. And learn something. Learn something. That's all life is about, is learning and applying. But learn good stuff and apply good stuff. Be well, play well, be nice, play nice, and we will all see each other again soon. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Bye, everyone.